Hi. Never thought I'd be doing one of these things, but then again, I never thought I'd be in the position I am. Please excuse the mess. This is not a professional recording. There's no script. This is just me a day before an event that's going to happen that's probably going to change the rest of my life. So let's go back a couple weeks. And, when you turn 50, they say you should do a colonoscopy. But what you might not know is they also allow you to do this test where they give you a kit that you bring home, you poop in this paper, and they use this little prick to get a sample, and then you mail it back in. And they say, yeah, that's just as good as a colonoscopy. Especially if you're, 50 or under and there's no history of cancer in your family. Well, I'm here to say don't do the test. Now, as you'll hear on the story I have to tell, you'll probably be thinking, what an idiot. He should have done the colonoscopy in the first place. And now that, I think about it, you're right, I should have. But there was an alternative given to me, and I always thought, why would I do a colonoscopy when I can do a simple test like that? So anyhow, let's go back. It's right before Thanksgiving, and excuse me, I've got a cough. So that's another thing. It's unscripted. So just before Thanksgiving, I was told. Actually, I wasn't even told this year. Let's go back even a year before. Turned 50 years old. Talked to the doctor and said, should I do a colonoscopy? She gives me the option for this prick the poo test, and I said I'll do that. Did it. Sent the sample in. Said it was negative. Everything's good. Yay! Don't have to do a colonoscopy. Well, COVID happens, and a year goes by, and doctor doesn't say to do the poo test, but I know it's my responsibility, and I know, hey, it's been over a year. I'm pretty sure I got to do that every year. So I contacted her and I said, hey, is it about time I do this test? And she says, yeah, I'll send you out the kit. Great. Well, this is right before Thanksgiving. So I get the kit, and of course I procrastinate. Excuse me. And I waited until the week of Thanksgiving. So I did the test, and I did it on a day that we had off. It was a holiday. And because of that, the mail didn't get picked up when it should have. I'm trying to think if I actually did it on Thanksgiving. Pretty sure the Friday after that's okay. But might have been whatever the result of it was. I did the test. I sent it in. It was too late. They emailed me back and said, hey, test was bad. You got to do it again. Like, great. Not a big deal. Better than a colonoscopy, right? Fine. So they send me the test kit. I get the test kit on a Monday. I'm not bringing it into work. I go to work at 5:30 in the morning. I should say I get to work at 5:30 in the morning. I've got a good routine, and I'm not doing this test where you lay down all this paper and then pricking the poo and then mailing it from the office. Not going to happen. So I waited till the weekend, Saturday. Do the test, get the kit. This time I'm smart. I go to the mail, the main mail distribution center, drop it in the mail in the post office, and like, good, done. Don't have to worry about that anymore. I get home. There's another test kit. Like, what? First thing that goes through my mind is, oh great, I waited so long to turn this test kit in or to do it that they sent me another one. Fine, I'll just do another one. Sunday rolls around, do the test, send it in on Monday. We're good. So I think about 4 or 5 days goes by, and I get a message, an email that says, Mr. Calendar, we're sorry, but your test came back positive. You're going to need to come in and do a colonoscopy. I'm like, crap. Now, I've had hemorrhoids in the past. When I was a kid, I got them. Every now and then, I'd have some little bit of blood, but nothing major, and it wasn't constant or anything. So I always figured I was going to have to do a colonoscopy anyhow. But there's no history of cancer in my family. Everything in my family is Alzheimer's and dementia, stuff like that. No cancer. So I figured, all right, got to do the colonoscopy. Was able to put it off for a year. Let's go do this. Next day, I get an email saying, hey, congratulations. Well, not congratulations. It was more like, hey, just want to let you know your test came back negative. You don't need to come in and do a colonoscopy. Okay. So now I'm thinking, okay, did one test come back positive, one came back negative? Now, the negative came back after. Does that mean I need to do it? Even though I got a positive, should I go do it? And of course, if somebody says you don't have to do a colonoscopy, I'm not doing a colonoscopy because I heard horrible things. Oh, it's intrusive. Oh, the stuff you have to take to do it is so awful. It's sickening. Oh, I can't believe anyone does these things. It's so bad. Well, so somebody tells me I don't have to do it. I don't really call them back. A couple of days goes by. Somebody leaves a voicemail message. And it says, hey, we want to let you know your colonoscopy, you need to come and do it. Your test was positive. You need to come in and do it. I'm like, all right, well, that settles it. I'm going to have to do it. Next day, I get a letter. The letter says, hey, we just want to let you know you do not have to come in and do this test, the colonoscopy. You were negative. So I'm like, okay, now they've given me an actual letter. But I'm like, it's just getting to be around Christmas time. After Christmas, I'll go in and do the damn thing. Put it off long enough, right? So while Christmas is going on, I get a certified letter to the house. Now, I don't know if any of you know what a certified letter is, but it's basically a letter that you have to sign for so that there's no way that you can say you didn't get it. And one of the people here signed it. And so it's basically as official as you can get. And I read it, and it basically says, hey, you haven't responded back about getting a colonoscopy. If you don't, we're basically raising our hands and saying we're not responsible for anything. Fine. I was going to do it. I really was this time. So I called him up, scheduled appointment, I think it was a week out or so. Like, great. Go get all the stuff you have to do to all the drink medicines and stuff to clean out your system. Now, this is what really shocked me. So I got all the stuff to do this, I don't want to call it a cleanse, because I did a cleanse before, one of those kits that's the maple lemon drink mix. I did that for a month. Now, think about that. All you do is drink this stuff for a month. There's no food involved. And I lost a lot of weight. It worked pretty good. But it's not a cleanse. It didn't, flush out my system or anything. Normal going to the bathroom, and then basically you stop going because you're just drinking this stuff. So I get the stuff for the colonoscopy, and it's like 3 or 4 things you got to do. And I follow the instructions, drink the stuff. It's not that bad. So 2 things I hope you take away from this, anyone who has to do a colonoscopy or is looking at a colonoscopy or an alternative. Number 1, do the colonoscopy. The drink stuff is not a big deal. It doesn't taste horrible. I've had much worse stuff, believe me. It's like a bad version of Sprite, non-carbonated. But it's not that bad, so just do it. Believe me. The benefits of doing a colonoscopy outweigh anything else. And, well, I'll talk about the colonoscopy in a second. So I drink all the stuff. It flushes me out really good. I mean, wow. I probably lost 10 pounds right there. Now, I had been dieting. I've been doing keto, my own version of it. I was eating a lot of protein, and I know you can have a certain number of carbs a day. I was usually keeping that under 10. So I was heavy duty into it. And I'd started again once January had rolled around. COVID was kind of hard to do. At least that's what I like to say. But I lost 15 pounds in a week or so of doing it. Worked great. So I go and do the colonoscopy. And they kind of knock you out. It's one of those things where you kind of drift off. But I woke up during it, or at least I came to, and I'm looking at the screen, just like, ugh. But it doesn't feel that horrible. I mean, I never wanted anything shoved up my butt before, but it wasn't like I'd imagine, like, oh my God, I want to go hang myself now because I feel so violated. Wasn't that bad. Um, Considering the benefits it does, do it. So, get the colonoscopy. Guy tells me as I'm recovering, uh, we found some polyps. He says it's nothing to be afraid of. People have polyps all the time. We took samples of it. We're going to check it for cancer and we'll let you know. I'm like, all right. He says, we also found some scar tissue. I'm like, scar tissue? I'm like, okay. I've never had anything up my butt before. Not even a shoe from somebody kicking me. So I was like, scar tissue? Didn't really get into it. It was just like, whatever. And he said he took a sample of that. And then he said there was a mass on my appendix. So the first thing that went through my mind is, how far up my butt did they go to where they saw my appendix? I'm like, oh, holy crap, I didn't know you could do that. Well, no pun intended there. And number two, what instantly went through my mind was, it's my appendix. Who cares? If you found something there, pull it out. I don't need it. So he said that was the spot that he was a little concerned with, but he was going to take a sample, send it in, not to worry. He then said, because this came back positive, or we found stuff, you're going to have to do a colonoscopy basically every year now. I'm like, great. But if that's the worst thing that happens to me, big deal. That wasn't the worst thing that happened to me. So a couple days goes by, and I get a call, and he says, you got cancer. I never thought I would get cancer. I told you that there's no history of cancer in my family. I thought that was the one thing I never had to worry about. And now I'm being told I have it. And of course, all the things go through my mind. Damn it, why didn't I get the colonoscopy last year? Was it there last year? But then I remember, wait a second. I did that test. How could one come back positive and one come back negative? What if I'd never done both kits and waited one more day to do the one that came back positive? It would have come back negative, and I would have no idea what was going on. So that's the second thing that anyone watching this, I want you to take away. Number one, colonoscopy, not that bad. Just do it. Number two, don't do that pick the poo test, because it can come back negative and you may have cancer. That's what I have. So I'm like, oh my God, I got cancer, but it's my appendix. Who cares? Pull it out. And he said, we'll probably do some surgery, pull it out, you'll be good. I'm like, great. Well, of course, he says, we need to see the extent, so they want me to come in and do a CT scan. Fine. This is all at Kaiser, by the way. They've been great. I'll just say that. So I go get the CT scan done. A couple of days later, they say they're going to have an oncologist at Kaiser talk to me and a surgeon. I'm like, that can't be good. So the surgeon I talked to, I was still in that frame of mind. It's my appendix. Who cares? I don't care how bad it is. Just pull it out. The surgeon gets on the phone and he basically starts telling me, I want you to talk to the oncologist. He's going to decide, is this going to be chemo, surgery, just surgery, chemo, then surgery, then chemo. And now I'm thinking, we're not talking just pulling something out. Chemo Hadn't even really crossed my mind because I thought, it's on my appendix. Who cares? And that's when he tells me it's not just on my appendix. And he says it's on the celium. I still don't have all the information down in my head because I was in such a state of shock. But it's in a couple of places. And they want to do a PET scan to see how deep it goes in. And I'm like, oh, jeez. All right, let's do it. You know, don't give me all this information. You say I got cancer? Fine, I'll kick cancer's ass. Just tell me what I got to do. I'll get past it. That's my train of thought. Remain positive, that whole thing. I'm generally a happy person, so news like this, I'm just like, okay, that's just something I got to overcome. Big deal. Let's go. So then the oncologist calls me, and he basically tells me, PET scan's going to show how deep this stuff is. You've got stage 4 cancer. I'm like, all the TV shows, like Fight Club, I'm thinking of that Chloe girl who's like as thin as a stick. She's got, I think they said stage 4 cancer. You never hear of anyone having stage 2 or stage 3 cancer. It's either you got cancer or you got stage 4 cancer. So I'm like, fuck. All right. I got stage 4 cancer. Let's just deal with it. Not really knowing what stage 4 cancer was, other than I thought it was like the most horrible thing in the world. Turns out, stage 4 is just that it's in multiple organs. So they, from the PET or from the CT scan, it really wasn't so much on my appendix as it was on this celium thing, and then part of my digestive tract and a little bit of the colon. So you could have a little bit of cancer in a couple different areas, and that's stage 4. So once I found out that, I'm like, okay, all right. And I look up the places that I've got this stuff, and I can live without everything. So I'm like, all right, let's go. And of course, they say where I have it is really, really rare. Of course. I don't get sick. I don't wear glasses. I got all my hair. Well, we'll see how much longer that lasts. And no cavities. Good genes. Never thought I'd get cancer. Always figured it'd be the brain. And now I'm being told, stage 4 cancer in multiple places. I'm like, All right. So, PET scan. And he was like, we want to get you this PET scan. We're going to stick this port in you. I'm like, port? And he says it's a way to get you the medication without having to go through your arm all the time. And let me tell you, I don't mind people drawing blood from me. I used to get shots when I was a kid. I had some allergies. So I guess I wasn't the pillar of health. I had allergies. But they always seem to have a hard time drawing blood from me. For whatever reason, they poke me 2-3 times. So when they said I can get this port thing, I'm like, I'm all for it. Let's do it. So, but he was basically saying, I want to get this port in you as soon as possible and start chemo like immediately. And I'm like, dang, all right. So a couple weeks ago, I got nothing going on. And now I've got stage 4 cancer. Let's get you started on chemo. Let me tell you, that was not a fun conversation to tell my parents. They're great, but I can't tell you how many times when I leave their house, they don't. You take care of yourself. You gotta outlive us. We don't want anything happening to you. I'm always like, yeah. Well, I'm gonna tell them this. So, figure I'm not going to say anything until I get the PET scan results. Why tell them it could be this, it could be that, this is what we could do, this is what we might do. I'd rather just get the results and say, this is the course of action they said we're going to do. That's what I'm going to do. I'll get through it. Don't worry about it. So I get the PET scan results back. Doctor's on vacation, of course. And the results, I don't know. I've read reports before, and this was not an easy thing to read. But from what I could see on it, it basically said, hey, You don't have cancer in your bloodstream, in your lymph nodes, in your liver. So all the places you don't want cancer, I don't got it. So I'm like, well, that's good. And the doctor left a brief message saying, this is good news. We're going to go as we thought we would, which I'm thinking, I think he said it was chemo, surgery, chemo. So I'm like, okay, well, that's good. And he had mentioned, best case scenario, chemo, then surgery would just scoop out all the cancer. You'd be cancer free, and then a little zap of chemo in case there's anything left, and then you're good. Worst case scenario was chemo. We scoop out as much of the cancer as we can. You still got it, but if there's any left, we'll zap it with the chemo. We'll keep it at bay. And of course, I didn't really get into, well, what does that mean? I got to be on chemo the rest of my life. Or, how long do I do chemo and how many sessions? I don't care. I'll do it. Just do it. Get it through it. I'm out. So once I found out it was good news with the PET scan, I went to tell my parents and drove down. They're about an hour away, unannounced. Walked in on the weekend and they're like, oh, we're so glad to see you. And I'm thinking to myself, the last time I did this was to tell them, hey, I'm getting divorced. I caught my wife with another guy. Yeah, I know. That literally happened. That's another story, though. But I did catch him. So, or her. Sorry, with him. Anyway, so I'm thinking that as I'm going in, that when I come in and announce, it's never good news. So we go sit down on the couch and in the living room, and like, how you doing? And I'm like, well, not so good. I got cancer. Bam! Point blank. And they're like, oh no! And try to ease their minds. I'm saying, okay, this is the course of action I'm going to do. This is what the doctor said. This is where I got it. This is what we're going to do. And then I tell my mom, I'm like, I never thought I'd have cancer like this. We have no history of cancer. Of course it's me. And I asked the doctor, I said, why did I get this? Is it my diet? This keto going back and forth on all this protein. And he said, other than being irradiated, which doesn't sound like you have been, bad luck. I'm like, at one point, my nickname used to be Lucky Luke. I won't get into it much, but things just seemed to go my way for a long time. So now I'm thinking I'm paying the piper. All that good luck I had is now coming back to where I'm going to be the one in the family with cancer. So I tell that to my mom, and she says, oh, your grandmother had colon cancer, your aunt had breast cancer, your grandfather had cancer, your cousin had colon cancer. What? Nobody ever told me this. I had no idea. So that's number 3. You may think you know your history, your medical history of your family. You might not. Ask. Don't think you know. They may talk about, oh yeah, all our cousins have died from heart attacks. That doesn't mean they didn't have cancer. So, number 1, don't do the pick the poo test. Number 2, the colonoscopies aren't that bad, just do it. And number 3, find out your medical history. Specifically ask, is there cancer in our family? Now, I thought, okay, this is probably a conversation I missed. I must have stepped away from the table one time when this was all brought up. My brother had no idea either. He was kind of pissed, actually. For me, if I'd known that there was a history of colon cancer in my family, I would have told the doctor. Would they have still let me do the pick the poo test? Who knows? Honestly, if they'd have given me the choice still, I'd like to think now I would have said, oh yeah, there's history. I'll do the colonoscopy. But I know how lazy I can be, and I probably would have said the same thing. Oh, well, let's just do the pick the poo if there's, no downside to it. Well, we know that's not the case. Positive and negative. So, yeah. cancer in the family. The other thing is, I started thinking about, and I haven't asked the doctor this yet, how long have I had this cancer? I mean, is it, he said it was rapid. How rapid? I mean, that Screech guy, Dustin Diamond or something, I think his name was, from Saved by the Bell. From what I read, he went into the hospital with some pains. He had some cancer that was so bad, 30 days later, he never left the hospital. He was dead. So that went through my mind, but especially when I thought there was such urgency. Once I got the PET scan, it was like, oh, well, we're going to schedule you to get the port, and then we'll set up the chemo. And the sense of urgency went way down once they got the PET scan. So that made me feel a little more at ease. Either that or they forgot about me, and I'd like to think it was because of the results of the PET scan. So, yeah, telling the parents wasn't fun. I knew that was going to be the worst part of it, but it went better than I had expected. So, yeah, I got cancer in a couple places, and not really emotional about it, except when you tell people, especially people you're close to. That really sucks. I had a couple friends that I wasn't looking forward to telling. One of them, he had a friend, probably his best friend in the world, had brain cancer. And I saw the toll it took on him, and I felt so bad for him. I told you my grandfather, or I said that dementia and Alzheimer's runs in my family. Alzheimer's really sucks, and that's what I was, like I said, you tell me I can have cancer or Alzheimer's, I'll take cancer, because messing with your brain, that's not fun. And you may joke about it like, oh yeah, you can watch The Lord of the Rings, and then 30 minutes later you might not remember you saw it, you can watch it all over again, something like that. The only memory I have of my grandfather now is seeing him with that Alzheimer's and pushing him around a little garden, and him not even remembering we went when I brought him back. And that was the memory that I knew my friend had of his friend who had brain cancer. So I was like, I don't want to burden my friend with him thinking back, if, everything they said, this is just going to cut right through all this cancer, but I didn't want him thinking back, oh my God, I'm going to lose my other friend, kind of thing. So that really sucked telling him. And then parents and him. Brother's cool, so I can tell him anything, and he's very non-emotional, so telling him is like basically talking to this microphone, except he talks back. So I knew I wouldn't get all emotional from telling him. Group of friends I have that I hang out with a lot, it was tough telling them too. But that's not what this recording is about. So what I figured I'd do is, I've told you my main parts already, the most important things. I'll say that at the end one last time. But I figured I'd show you the process that I'm going through. Like I said, I'd never really had a health problem before. I've never had a surgery. I did have pancreatitis, and they put a stint in me by doing an endoscopy. But other than that, no. I broke a bone once, but that's it. Nothing major. So, port. Forgot. I meant to do this video like 2 weeks ago, but like I said, I'm a slacker, so I didn't. But I was going to do it every single stage of what I went through. But I kept putting it off. But the port that they put in me. So, I don't know if you can see this. Oh, there's a, not within a Band-Aid there. But basically what they do is they put this little, I don't know what you'd call it, a tube with an end on it that's just under the skin. So instead of having to go into your arm to put in, to take blood and to do the chemo, they just punch it through this port. And I'm like, oh, cool. They don't have to work on my arm. And by the way, when I went to get the blood drawn from some of these tests, they totally messed up, and my arm was so black and blue. They actually had to, after 2 times trying to go into my arm, into my vein, they went into my hand. Right, I don't think you can see that right there. That's like 2 weeks ago. That hurts like a mother. It's a little painful still, but if you've ever had to have an IV put into your hand, oh my God, it's the worst. So when they said I can get this port, I'm like, great. But then they said, we're going to have to draw blood from your port. Me, I was joking. I thought it was just an innie where they pump the stuff in like the chemo. And of course I thought, oh, I wonder if I shoot some alcohol in there and get drunk right into the bloodstream. And they're like, yeah, that goes straight to your heart. Say, yeah, probably not a good idea. Okay. But they also use it to draw the blood out. So I got that done yesterday. So I got the port put in. Wasn't that bad. I was awake for the procedure. Put it in, did a great job. Hurt for a couple of days, but now it's just a little sore. But they drew the blood yesterday, and lady pulls out this needle like the length of my finger, and right in, and it's not like a piece of metal, like a mesh that they just push this thing through. Your skin's over it. So when they punch through the skin, I mean, whether it's your arm or this port, you're punching through skin. So it hurt. Not as bad as the hand, but it wasn't this pain-free experience I was hoping for. So anyhow, got the blood drawn, and I do chemo tomorrow. So once again, I procrastinated doing this until the very last second. So my regiment is going to be 2 days before chemo, I get blood tested. Then I do the chemo, 7 hours. 4 medications specifically designed for my area where the cancer is. I'll be there for 7 hours. And I told you, I get up at 5. I go to bed at 11. I don't even get 7 hours of sleep. So sitting in a chair for 7 hours, I've got movies to watch, an audiobook, some letters that what a procrastinator I am. Back in college, I basically was a gang violence counselor, and these kids wrote all these nice letters to me. I still haven't read them. They're like 30 years old. To be fair, I did just find them again after my parents were getting rid of stuff from my house, so I wasn't that slack-offy. But anyhow, I got those to read. I got a lot of stuff I can go through. But 7 hours sitting. Oh, by the way, this cough that I got, it's not COVID. Got my first injection. Funny thing is, I have this cough that comes and goes. And 3 years ago, I thought, I'm sick of this. So I went to the doctor and I said, let's figure out what this is. They ran all these tests, even a CT scan, and couldn't figure out what it was. Just went away. Now it's back. So unfortunately, when they did the CT scan, they only went down to the bottom of the lungs. And, once again, I'm wondering, if they'd have gone further down, would they have found the cancer? How long have I had this cancer? If the test was negative this year, it could have been negative last year and I could have had the cancer, or I could have had the cancer going back even further. So that is a question I'm going to ask. I have a video conference call tomorrow while I'm actually sitting on the chair. So, sorry, I got a little off track there. So it's blood test, 2 days later chemo, 2 days later I return a pump. So apparently I'm going to be wearing a pump on my belt or something. I don't really have a lot of information about that. But it's 4 medications. I'm going to do this for... The chemo is once a week, every other week. So next week I won't be doing anything. The week after it'll be the same blood test, chemo, return pump. So, I've heard all the things, hair loss, possible, lose weight, yay! So I figured every time I do something, I'll do one of these videos, and we can see the transformation. Just to let you know, when they first told me I had the cancer, it was probably about 3 weeks ago now, maybe 4 weeks ago, from the time I did the colonoscopy, then got the results, did the CT, got the results, did the PET scan, got the results, put in the port, and now chemo. It's probably been about a month. I've gained 15 pounds because they told me get off the keto. You want to eat lean meats, fruits, vegetables, and a lot of oats, a lot of fiber. So as you know, with keto, you don't touch bread really. And now I'm eating like this 21 grain, and from going from no sugars at all to fruits that have sugars, and vegetables don't, but you get the idea. So this is probably the most I've weighed, which is, I think they weighed me with all my clothes on. I was 285, 87. That was yesterday. So we'll see how that goes. So thanks for watching. Like I said, I'll be doing these as needed. Hopefully, like I said, the only reason I'm doing this is because I don't want somebody to blow it like I did. Do the colonoscopy. Don't do the prick the poo test. Because as with me, I could have gotten a negative. It came back negative. One of the tests came back negative, and I would never know I had cancer. And who knows? That would have been another year. In another year, it could have spread everywhere, and I'd basically be fucked. So, do the colonoscopy. It's not bad. It's not as bad as people say. If anybody says it's the most horrible experience in their life, then they have a very sheltered life. And find out about your medical history. Don't just assume you know. Don't just think, oh, well, I heard my so-and-so relative had this. Question it. Ask specifically, do we have a history of cancer in our family? Because that could change everything. You might find that out, and they might want to have you do, a colonoscopy before you're 50 years old. I'm 51. So the last one I did was the first time ever with that prick the poo thing. I've done that twice now, and now a colonoscopy, and I don't know. I don't know if they could have caught it sooner. Did it come between the last time I got tested and now? All questions that I've got to ask. Don't know if I'll get an answer for. So, yeah, that's it. Signing off for now, and next time you'll see me, I'll have gone through 7 hours of chemotherapy. So take care and do what I didn't do.